So that shiny new game just came out, Monster Hunter Wilds, and you want to know if it's worth your time, right? Well, let's take a look at the game first and first impressions. Keep in mind this is not a full review, this is a quick look at the game. Everything I'll be talking about happened within 4 hours of starting the game, so I'll show some footage of the game while describing it and giving a few thoughts on it. Okay, so on Steam currently, I can see that 1.2 million people are on the game, and the reviews are mixed, but there's more negative reviews than positive. I'd say the overwhelmingly biggest issue people are having on this game is the performance. I have a 9800X 3D and a 4070 Ti. I played on 1440p, DLSS on balanced, and then my settings were a little mixed. I had some at high, some at highest, and a couple at medium. And I had frame gen on too. My FPS usually ranged from 100 to 140 with these settings. So my own personal experience for this game was okay. I didn't have any crashes or any issues really. So if you're interested in this game, you'll want to make sure that you have a strong enough PC and possibly be prepared to lower your graphic settings as well. This game truly does not have the best graphics. It's not bad necessarily, but nor is it good. It's a whatever sort of graphics. There is a high resolution texture pack, but on Steam it says that it needs 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and my GPU only has 12 gigabytes, so that's a no-go for me. One last thing about the graphics is that this game uses DLSS 3. Maybe it'll be updated for DLSS 4 in the future, I don't know. But what I do know is that you can swap out the DLSS 3 DLL for the DLSS 4 DLL, and there's several ways that you can do that if you research it. For the sake of this video though, I did not play the game like that. I just played with the default DLSS, but when I next get on the game and I play just for myself, I will be swapping it out. DLSS 4 is newer and it really does look better than DLSS 3. With the performance and the graphics out of the way, let's dive into the game now. It begins with a scene of people running away from a monster, and the boy that's in the man's arms in the scene is the only one who escapes it. And then there's another scene, and it says the Forbidden Lands, a region split off from civilization 1,000 years ago and thought to be deserted. Then there's a big floating ship, and a lady on that ship spots someone lying in the sand who just so happens to be that boy from the very beginning scene. It turns out that the monster that chased him was called the White Wraith, and the boy's been walking through the desert for days after being attacked. So after that scene, you can now customize your character, and there's a lot of options here. I spent 30 minutes just customizing, and there was a decent amount of customizations that I just skipped entirely because it just takes too long. You also have a little cat companion that you can customize, but not to the same extent as your own character. Once done customizing, your character will walk out onto a ship, but this one is not the same one from the beginning. This one is on the sand. They're trying to find that boy's people to rescue them if need be, and also they want to find more information about that monster that attacked his people. Then off to the side of that ship, a little girl is on a creature, and she's running from a pack of monsters that can dive in and out of the sand. Your character will rescue her, and then when the ship stops, she says that she was with her brother doing riding practice and then a monster came. He told her to run, and then he stayed behind. So while the rest of the ship leaves to make camp, you and a couple others set out to find that girl's brother. At this point in the game, you can finally freely walk around. Also, this is where you can change your starting weapons too. There's 14 different ones, and I went with the dual swords so that I can just continuously deal damage. When we reach her brother, he's under attack by a monster, and then you get to fight it. There's not too much variation of attacking with dual swords that I've found. It's pretty simple. Dual swords is all about attacking and dodging. There's no defending. But killing monsters feels like it takes forever though. Either my weapons are weak compared to the other weapons, or monsters just have a lot of health. I felt this way the whole time that I played, that the monsters just took too long to kill. I also played solo though, with bots that would join me. I could have used online people, but I wanted to go solo. So if I played online, then there's a pretty good chance it would have went faster. The most important way to do damage is to attack the same spot repeatedly, and then a wound will open up on that monster. You can then use that wound to launch a special attack that deals even more damage. Another thing about fighting monsters I've noticed is that it seems to follow the exact same patterns. So for example, while following along the story, you'll need to fight a big monster for some reason, and then when you injure it enough, it'll run away, and then you catch up to it, injure it again, and then it runs away again, and then you can actually kill it. It seems to always run away before you can actually kill it, and I found that kind of annoying. When it does die, you have about 60 seconds to carve materials from it before the quest ends, and when it ends, you're usually teleported somewhere else to a cutscene, but not always. So after saving that brother, you all go to the new makeshift camp, and then the brother and the sister reunite, and now here in this camp is a few interesting places of note, but what I used the most often in the camp was the area where a girl with cleavage can upgrade your weapons and armor, and also your cat companion's weapons and armor too. I experimented with several types of dual swords that I unlocked, but what I like so far is a sword that has the fire affinity on it. The next mission in the story was to go get some honey with that brother that you rescued, but then during that mission he then invites you to his village, but one of the guys there doesn't let you in, so you just return back to the camp. One thing that you need to know about this game is that there's a lot of scenes and a lot of dialogue. I haven't played the previous games, so I don't know how much is in those, but for this game game, I found myself wanting the talking to be over already, and for there to be more fighting. Then for exploring, you'll find a bunch of random things that you can just pick up, all of which can be used for crafting materials, usually some rocks, ore, plants, bugs, and stuff like that. I haven't found anything like chests or armor, for example. It doesn't seem to be that kind of game. So now back at the camp, a SOS flare goes off nearby, so we hurry over to help. As it turns out, it's a bunch of those cats that got into trouble. It looks like a monster wants the meat that they're carrying, but they just refuse to leave it. So I ended up fighting another monster. Oh, and I forgot to mention, my sword kept getting blunt, so I had to continuously use a whetstone to sharpen it and keep the damage up. I usually did that mid-battle too, and sometimes I got hit because of that. I noticed when I used the bone swords though, those didn't really get blunt. Or maybe they did, but they just took a long time. I don't really remember because I switched back to my fire swords shortly after trying out those bone ones. And to switch weapons, you have to be on your mount. You can also assign what weapons are your primary and secondary weapons in the camp, and you have to go to the tent to do that. So here's an example. Let's say I have my fire swords as my primary, and then my bone swords as my secondary. If I'm fighting a monster with my fire swords, but then want to switch mid-battle, I just call the mount over, press the button to switch weapons, and then I get off the mount. It's that simple. You could probably assign other types of weapons as primary and secondary, but I really did only stick with dual swords. After I killed the monster that was attacking the cats, I went back to the camp, and I spent a whole lot of time here just talking and upgrading. Then eventually I resumed the mission, and this time you can actually go into that one village, but it's not all that exciting. They do live in a desert after all. There is, however, a scene in this village that super focuses on eating food, which I found a little bit odd. Odd because they really zoomed in on the eating, and the food seemed to have extra detail. You can actually cook food for yourself as well. You just need to place down your little cooking kit, and then off you go. Food does seem to give you some temporary buffs too. Eventually, I went into the nearby forest, and there's a secondary camp here, with the same functions as the main one. There's also a little fishing spot in this forest camp too, and I caught a fish. The reason for going into the forest is because while at the village, giant monsters ran through it, and so I'm tracking them down. Oh, and one super odd thing about the people in the village is that no one has weapons. In fact, no one even fights. It's very weird. And then when they saw the weapons on your character's back, they'd be like, "What are those? It looks dangerous." How can they live among monsters and not once have fought them? It just blows my mind. In addition to the main camps, there's also pop-up camps, and they can be used for fast travel, but they can also be destroyed by monsters too. The next monster that I faced was in the forest, and it was a big spider-like monster. Like most fights, the battle was fine, but it took a while to kill. When I got back to the pop-up camp, I was surprised to see that it was being raided by little furry people. They kinda reminded me of Ewoks from Star Wars. They stole our items, and then we followed them back to their place. The leader there said that they'd return the items if we killed a monster for them.
We no give back. We have claimed it as tribute. But we make deals, okay? A great menace is making the troubles by our honey mound. Its pink fur is big, stylish, and cool, but its gases are of a stinknacious variety. Chase away Big Menace, and in our generosities, we shall return your puny hovel.
And I think the main reason is because they just like the monster's fur and they want it. This monster was so unexpected though. One of its attacks is to fart on you. The humor from the little furry guys and this fart monster was unexpected, but I liked it. Also, this monster in particular was kind of difficult to face. It had smaller versions of itself that attacked you too, and it kept flopping on me. I ended up fighting two more big monsters the rest of the time that I played, and one was a big desert lizard, and the other was a giant monster that had run through the village, so I did eventually catch up to that one. After I killed that one though, I got off the game. So in over 4 hours, I fought about 6 or 7 big monsters and a few smaller ones here and there. There was a whole lot of scenes and dialogue between each big monster too. Like I mentioned before, I'd rather less scenes and more fighting, but it wasn't too bad. There is of course a lot of things about the game that I didn't mention, like other things in the camp, online play, and some more attacks that you can do via items in your pouch. But the gist of the game is use big weapons, attack big monsters. I honestly would have liked more attack moves. I think to spice up the combat, I'll be switching my secondary weapon to something completely different and not run 2 different dual swords. Do I like this game? I think it's fine. It's not an amazing game to me, but I am interested enough in it to continue playing. I haven't played the previous games, so I'm not sure what someone who's played those games would think of this one. Is it better? Is it more of the same? Is it worse? I don't know, that's up to you. All in all, if you like to fight big monsters and you like a bit of story to go along with it, then this here is your game, though that's my personal opinion. Whether or not this is your type of game, I'll see you on the next one.